Hi guys, I'm Cece, the artist behind Cece's Art and Stuff, and in this video I'm going to be speed painting through some of my outfit of the day drawings. These are several of the drawings from July 2017. I started this project just for fun. I wanted something to kind of just a project that I could follow, something that was a little different and was going to help me with my sketching skills and working on outfits and different things like that. I wanted to practice posing as well, so I figured I would try Outfit of the Day challenge and take a picture of what I was wearing for the day and then sketch it. So in this is the first one that I did. It's just a normal sketch of normal outfit, I guess. Nothing super extraordinary about it. I was going to go do a photo shoot for some friends, so I just threw on this outfit, and I have my camera bag and some camera equipment with me. But what I'm doing right now as far as drawing, I started by drawing the front view, just sketching out what I saw in the picture, trying to get it as close to the picture as possible, but also keeping in mind what the outfit looks like in person. So I took the front drawing and went ahead and took that whole layer and flipped it and then erased whatever was inside, so that basically just left the outside kind of silhouette of my body. And then I went and I redrew everything inside so that it looked like the back of what I looked like. I'm doing all of this with a single brush at a single thickness, and I went ahead and added in details and then did sort of like a hatching thing that I kind of tend to do in pretty much all of my art, or most of it. So then I've taken both of those line layers and I've merged them into one, and then I've turned it blue by using the FX options. And you can find those, it's just the F and the X icon at the bottom of the layers pull out. So I turned that blue, duplicated it, made it a little fuzzy so that it kind of looks like it glows. Another thing I do in a lot of my art. I've gone ahead and made a new layer and just filled in both of the line arts with a flat 50% gray solid shape, I guess. And then on top of that, I create a new layer, set it as a clipping mask on top of that gray layer, and then that's what I'm coloring on top of. So pretty quickly just going through and adding all of the colors, trying to again keep it as close to the picture as possible, but also keeping in mind what it looks like in real life, because sometimes the picture, you know, depending on the lighting, shadows and color of the light that you're in, it can change the way that it looks in the picture and not be as accurate as to how it looked in person. So I'm kind of trying to find a medium between both of those. So going in and adding just a little bit of detail. I'm keeping most of this pretty loose, pretty general, like not too much detail, not a lot of care as far as keeping it clean or anything. But yeah, so I was just kind of testing out the water since this was the first one. And then moving on to the next one, I'm doing a athletic outfit that I went for a bike ride on. So for this one, I started a little bit different. I tried to challenge myself and start with the back view instead of the front view. This was, I think, the third or so one that I did. So yeah, this one was a bit of a challenge. I don't know if it was because I started with the back view or because I don't know, it was just the pose or something, but yeah, it was kind of hard to get proportions right with this one. But it was a really fun outfit, and that was neat. Tried to mix up the pose a little bit with each of these. But I'm just going through, doing the line art, trying to get it as close to what I'm seeing in the drawing. Again, doing this sort of things like freehand, just sketching. I would say that the best thing that helps me get good at doing this was doing figure drawing, like traditional figure drawing, where you have the person posing and you just straight up draw them with whatever the time period is. And so I did a lot of that, especially doing quick gestures and doing the pose, whatever the pose was, doing it in marker. That way you kind of have to be really specific with every line that you're doing, and everything has to be super intentional because you can't erase anything. So doing practices of life drawing with a marker, especially really quick ones like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, that was probably the best practice that I could do for figuring out how to do something like this. But the hardest part is definitely just starting when you have a blank screen or blank piece of paper in front of you. Trying to tackle that is really, it's just mentally hard to just jump in and start drawing. But once you get that first line down, the rest of it becomes a lot easier. So you just kind of have to take that leap of faith and just start, and from there it begins to get easier. But yeah, so again, I've done the same process, and I'm going to do that with all of these outfit of the day drawings. I will draw one view, usually the front view, in this case the back view, and then I'll take that layer and I'll flip it, and then I'll erase everything on the inside, and then that leaves the same silhouette as the front, but then I go in and I fill in the inside of that outline with whatever the opposite view is. So I've done that. Now I'm going in and I'm selecting all of, basically making the shape selection so that I can fill in with that solid gray layer. And that just gives me something to quickly go back to and start cell shading on top of. So now that I have that gray layer, I've flipped it so that it works for both sides. And then I can just make a new layer on top of it, set it to a clipping mask, and then start filling in the colors on top of it without having to keep worrying about staying inside the lines or something like that. And then when I've finished, I can make a full global adjustment to all of the colors, and I don't have to keep going in and selecting individual colors to do any changes. So yeah, I'm just filling in the cells, different blocks of color, again keeping it really loose, really general, and trying to keep it close to both the picture and to what I know it looks like in real life. This one, especially working with blacks, is kind of hard when you're trying to match with the picture because the lighting can really affect the way that that black looks. In the photo, it looks one way, but in real life, I know that that was more of a bluish kind of black rather than like a reddish black or a purpley black. So that's where creative control comes in, and you just make it look however you want. It's up to you if you want it to be super accurate, or if you want to add a little fantasy to it and kind of put some pizzazz on some of the colors. And one of the places that you'll see a lot of difference between the accuracy, I guess, of colors would be with my skin tone and with my hair color in each picture. Sometimes the lighting makes me look a little tanner, or maybe what I'm wearing, I look a little bit more orange or a little bit more pale. In this, I'm wearing a lot of black and I had that blue lipstick, so I look pretty pasty. So I made myself, in the drawing, a little bit more pale and pasty looking than in some of the other outfits that I drew. And that's just me taking that creative freedom with the drawing and figuring out what I want to do. So then to finish up the drawing, again, I color the line art to look the way that I want. Usually it's going to be a bluish or purple color. And then I will duplicate the layer and add a filter blur to it so that it kind of glows a little bit. It doesn't look so harsh. Kind of softens up the drawing and adds a little bit of texture to it. Okay, and into the next one, I have another outfit. This was just going out to dinner with the family. Usually I will start drawings like this. I learned that starting at the top of the bottom of your figure, so if you start at the feet or you start at the head, which most people are kind of tempted to start at the head. It seems like a natural place to start, but you'll realize that as you start at one extreme end and then move towards the other, so let's say you start drawing the head and start moving towards the feet, as you keep drawing, things get elongated or shortened, or the proportions start to get a little bit more weird and wonky as you continue drawing further and further away from that starting point. So I've, at least personally for me, I've noticed that drawing and starting somewhere in the hips or the chest, or somewhere in the middle of the body, the middle of the figure, kind of helps me avoid that problem, and kind of helps me from not ending up with a giant head or a giant feet or super long legs or something. When you do that, when you start at the head, you're kind of already setting up your drawing with the mindset that the head or the face is the most important. And this is not a portrait. It's not a bust. It's a full body drawing. So the feet and the legs, the elbows, it's all as important as the eyes or the face or the clothing. So starting somewhere in the middle, or somewhere a little bit not so obvious, I guess, or a little bit different, may benefit you and start putting you in a different mindset for involving the whole body and keeping everything on that same sort of importance, and not making the head the focal point, or making it too big, or ending up with weird proportions. In my experience, that has helped me more than anything, and it kind of also tackles that fear that I was talking about earlier of starting the drawing when you just have this blank page. Sometimes it's really scary to tackle that. So if you start by just drawing some weird part of the shirt, right where those buttons are together, or just start drawing the wrist or something, that can kind of help you from getting overwhelmed with all of the empty space and all of the things that you want to fill it with. And so for this one, the outfit that I was wearing, the shirt, it had a pattern on it, and this is the first time that I was drawing one of these, and I had to tackle something like a pattern. Everything else I'd had up so far had been, for the most part, a solid. So figuring out what to do and how to tackle that was a little bit of a challenge with this one. For the most part, I've kept all of these generally loose and simplified drawings. I'm not going too much into detail with these, and I'm keeping it kind of messy. So figuring out how to do a repeating pattern that's really geometric was kind of a little bit of a, figuring out how I wanted to tackle that was different. So for what I decided to do was just kind of add a squiggle that sort of gave the implied idea that there was a pattern, not actually going through and drawing every single perfect little triangle, or I think they're squiggles or like little zigzags or something. But instead of doing that, just going in and giving the implied lines of, hey, there's some squiggle pattern thing here that continues, and it's in little lines or whatever. Sometimes you don't always have to draw every little thing, and it still comes across that way. I don't have to draw every single strand of hair, but you can still see, okay, here's the main kind of flow of where the hair goes, and here's the main clumps. Same thing with folds of clothing, or the little braids that are actually on the bottom of these shoes. I don't have to draw every single little detail, but you still get that there's something there with those implied lines. And in this case, it's through this kind of repeating squiggle that implies a really nice, neat lines of squiggles. Okay, and moving on to this one's probably the most fun outfit. You love to wear J fashion and more gothic and Visual K inspired clothes, and I used to do it a lot, but lately I haven't been able to due to certain circumstances, but I got to this day. So this was for a sushi date. I got to put on my super crazy platform shoes and a nice little wig that I got. I got really lucky on that. Actually, it was super cheap on eBay, but turned out to be pretty good. So just a casual, comfy outfit to go for a little sushi date. This one was, again, really hard to do because it was a very different silhouette. A lot of the top half of the body is completely obscured by this giant sweater, and then the bottom half is like completely fitted clothing with these crazy shoes. So getting proportions to look right in this was really hard. Again, another place where I had to make those decisions of, do I want to follow what I'm seeing in this picture, or what I know the body looks like, or you know, how it works and stuff. So it was kind of had to find a happy medium between that. Something you have to be careful with, because sometimes you think you know how the body works or how it's going to look, and how it looks in real life is completely different. So that's something I had to play with here, and trying to get those proportions to feel correct and balanced. So it was really fun, but I really liked that outfit, and hopefully I can do more unique looks rather than just the you know, usual kind of stuff that I've been wearing lately. And again, with the makeup here, you can't really see it too much in the photo, but I had some fun eyeliner and other things with the makeup. So I went ahead and drew those in, even though you couldn't really see them in the picture as much because the hair was covering it. But all in all, this was really fun, and trying to get a unique pose with these outfit of the day things is another thing that I've been challenging myself with. And I think that's one of the reasons I liked this one so much, was because the pose was so different from all the other ones. So I've flipped the image, started with the front, flipped it, and now I will go ahead and start erasing all of the inside lines and inside drawings with this back layer. I also kept the shoe. One of the shoes is I just kept the drawing because it would be the exact same on both sides. So I went ahead and, instead of drawing it twice, I took the lazy route, or we'll say the more efficient route, and left the drawing as was. So now I'm going through and adding the background, or the back side. Most of the time I will take a picture of the back of the outfit as well, trying to get the same pose so that I can have that for reference for when I'm going to draw it. Another thing that's really important to keep in mind when you're doing this method of drawing front and back poses is to keep in mind where your feet are. As you know, if you think about the figure in 3D space, if you rotate it, so if you're facing one direction and then you rotate yourself to face the other direction, the placement of your feet relative to where the viewer is going to change. So when I'm facing forwards here in this drawing on the right, my left foot is the one closest to the viewer. But when you turn that, it becomes the opposite. So you can't just rely on flipping the layer and keeping it like that in drawing, because then the placement of the feet is going to be wrong. Because in real life, we didn't just flip you, we rotated you around in real space. So sometimes you have to redraw where those feet are going to be placed. So you can see that I had to make the legs kind of appear shorter because they're farther away from where the viewer is. And it can get a little tricky and a little confusing, but it's again another thing that you have to keep in mind, and comes with practice of drawing real figures in real space. So if you ever do get the chance or the opportunity, or can make it happen in any way, I urge you to draw from life, draw people from life, whether it's you're just sitting on the couch and your friends watching TV next to you, draw them right there. Be creepy, go to the park, draw strangers, whatever you have to do. I definitely recommend drawing from life, because it makes all the difference in your future of drawing and practicing drawing. It's really, really helpful. And again, in this one, I obviously have a different hair color, so it doesn't really matter as much the accuracy in relation to the other drawings that I've done. But my skin color here, I made a lot more red than some of the other ones, just because against the white hair, the red of my skin tone really comes out. And again, it's something that isn't too obvious in the picture, but in real life I notice it, so I decided to push it a little bit more in this drawing. Also, in this particular drawing, I did a lot more shading and highlighting than I did in any of the other outfit of the day sketches. I did more detail as far as where their drop shadows are and stuff, and actually incorporated that with the color rather than just doing the hatching lines that I normally do. So I really like the way it turned out on this, but kind of wasn't really the goal when I started out. I just wanted to kind of again practice with the different posing, practice with different outfits, but I'm glad that I did do it, and I think in the future ones I probably will too keep spending more time on these rather than just keeping them super simple. Just adding that little bit of detail really made a difference. And so then for the last one is probably one of my favorite outfits for the ones that I've done so far. I was had just finished giving my dog a bath in our shark kiddie pool that is like my favorite thing ever. And so I kind of had like half a bathing suit on, and then I was getting ready to change, but my cousin called me to get a ride, so I had to throw some clothes on really quickly. So I threw on my pineapple shawl, which is also my favorite thing because I love pineapples. So that was a pretty great outfit. One of those like people of Walmart outfits where you're out running about and you're just like didn't have time to actually put on clothes. So yeah, that's what that is. With this pose, I've always had a lot of trouble with simpler poses, as crazy as that sounds. Poses that are just upright, standing straight are sometimes the hardest, especially when it comes to proportions. So that definitely came into play here, trying to get that natural weight of the body and the way that the body actually stands in real life, but naturally, but also having to fight with a really vertical and plain pose is challenging for me. I also ended up doing a lot more of that hatching than I normally did. I guess I made up for the last one that I didn't do any of it. So, that's one of those things that it just kind of depends on like where, I am or in my mind or what I'm doing, that sometimes I forget, to maintain that style or whatever. This is another one where getting the feet and redrawing the feet from the back and getting the lengths of that is really important and really definitely makes a difference here, because you're drawing the actual back of the feet, and so the way that the ground is and the angle that you're viewing or taking the picture from changes what you see of the feet and what you see of the front of the feet from the back view. So all of those things, that's another reason why I take the pictures from the back as well, so that I can see that, and it definitely helps me with drawing the back views. I'm drawing a bunch of little pineapples for the pattern. I could have easily taken and drawn one pineapple and then copy and pasted it, or even easier would have been to make a brush out of it and just have that brush scatter, but I chose to do the hard thing and draw the little pineapples. But keeping it pretty loose wasn't too hard, wasn't too much time consuming, and that's what it really comes down to for me, is not so much the work of it, but how much time is it going to take for me to draw these pineapples or draw all of this pattern or whatever else, and trying to find the most efficient way to do things in Photoshop. So then again, using the same process, I have my line work front and back. I have the 50% gray filled layer, and then I'm going in with a clipping mask and adding in all of the color on top of that. So far, doing this outfit of the day challenge has been really fun. It's been one of the funnest things I've done in a long time. I really like fashion, and I really like drawing clothes and folds of clothes and playing around with different poses and stuff. So this has been really fun. I've continued to take more pictures of my outfits every day, and I plan to go in and draw more of the outfits that I took. Trying to get a big variety in with what I've been wearing and how I'm posing, and so we'll see how those continue to turn out in the future. But I've really enjoyed this, and I really urge you guys, if you're, itching for something to draw and don't really know what to do, definitely try outfit of the day stuff. I've even seen where people draw other people's outfits, which is really cool because sometimes I'm wearing some really boring stuff. Again, with this one, unlike some of the other ones, but following after the last one, I went ahead and did add some shadowing and a little bit of highlights and things with the actual colors, adding in some different shades and values within those shadows was really nice. So that gives it a little bit of color and depth too, so that the shadows aren't just darker colors, it's actually different colors, and adding in some reds and some blues into the shadows. So here are all of the outfits completed. This is the ones that I included for this July video. Hopefully within the next months I can make more videos of more of these outfit of the day drawings, because this has been really fun. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned a little bit or got inspired by any means, and please be sure to like, comment, and especially subscribe. Thank you for watching.